Thank you for that warm reception. I appreciate you all coming this evening. I know there are other things to be doing on campus, including cheering on the Buffaloes tonight. So if we move this process along, we can all see the second half. I'd really like to talk about four primary things tonight. The first, which is kind of what was pitched to you, was the notion of understanding what led to the beginning of Noodles & Company and how I started the company. I'd like also then to, secondly, spend a few minutes on the evolution of Noodles & Company. So we started in one place, and it's not what you see today in the restaurants, right? Because it's been 13 years almost since opening the first Noodles & Company. So if we had continued on with the exact formula we started with 13 years ago, we wouldn't be alive today. There'd be no noodles for you. Because, we just wouldn't have made it. So why does the business evolve, and how does it evolve? I'd like to spend a little bit of time on that and show you some tangible examples. This is mostly going to be pictorial here. I'd like to also spend a few minutes and talk about our unconventional approach. Because Noodles & Company, and just in general, my philosophy about the restaurant industry is that if I were going to start a restaurant business, I didn't want to just have an ordinary, run-of-the-mill business, right? I wanted to do this really, really well. So what are some of the things that we did differently than other folks? And we'll talk a little bit about that. And the last thing is the thing that's probably nearest and dearest to my heart, which is the culture. Because I think the culture is really what makes any business successful or unsuccessful. So, and whether you want to work there or don't want to work there probably has a lot to do with the culture. What kind of place is it to work? What kind of people does it attract? So, let's just jump in. We'll spend like 5 or 10 minutes on each one of those things, and then we'll have a little time for questions, and we'll be able to tee it up with the gang over there. Mr. Higgins, and who else do we have on the team? We've got a bunch of other good folks this year. So anyway, here we go. Noodles & Company, quick overview for those of you who don't know. Many of you probably grew up in different parts of the country. You may or may not have seen Noodles & Company there. We're in about 20 states. We now have a little update from this slide. We have 170 restaurants. They average about $1.1 million in revenue, each one of them. They're mostly company-owned. In other words, we operate them, not a franchise operator. We do have a few franchise operators. We have over 3,000 employees that are part and that make up the heart of that culture that I mentioned. I founded the business here in Boulder in 1995 in my basement. So that's a quick thumbnail sketch. So I'm not going to show a lot of beauty shots about food because I like to talk about, I love food, and food is certainly the heart of what we do. It's why you come to us ultimately. This is a Japanese pan noodles. If you haven't had it, it's wonderful. But when I talk with students, you're likely not to go into the restaurant industry yourselves. So you're trying to garner something from this discussion that's going to be helpful for you if you go into, financial planning at a big publishing company, or you go to work for MTV, or whatever you do. Hopefully you'll be able to take some value out of here. So just because I don't talk a lot about food doesn't mean I don't love food and I don't care about food. It is all about the food and the people when you come right down to it. So section number 1 is building a world-class brand. I do a whole class on these things, believe it or not, which is, are you cut out to be an entrepreneur or not? But my favorite recipe for starting a company, if you're ever thinking about starting your own business, these are some of the attributes I think would be helpful to size up in yourself. You got to make sure you have a clear vision for what you're going to do. What is the business? You got to have a whole lot of courage. You got to have ingenuity to solve problems as they present themselves, or even before they present themselves. The ingenuity to solve those. Physical and emotional endurance, that sort of thing. So this is my quick little recipe. That's not a big part of what we're going to talk about tonight. Okay, so the Spark. Does anybody know where this is? Marnie's Noodle Shop. Marnie's Asian Noodle Shop. Broadway? No. It's funny you mentioned Broadway. It's not too many blocks from Broadway, but it's actually in New York. On Hudson Street in the West Village, a different Broadway. But this is, I stumbled along Hudson Street where I lived. I was working for a consulting firm, design firm actually, that designed for the companies that Shefali mentioned. We did design work for Coca-Cola, for Gillette, for the limited companies, created Abercrombie and Fitch. That was all done before I got there, that part of it. But and so I walked from the West Village to work. One of the places I walked by was this little noodle shop. And I walked in there, and they had a simple little menu. They had like a diner format, little stools, little Formica counter. You'd sit there on one of these little stools. You'd see the guy working at a 6-burner range there, sautéing one of 8 or 10 Asian noodle dishes that were on the menu: pad thai, yakisoba, coconut curry. But the interesting thing, the thing that caught my attention, was these were noodle dishes from all different cultures. Because we all know we can go to a Thai restaurant and get pad thai. We'd have to go to a Japanese restaurant to get yakisoba. Well, this place just said, oh, we're going to do noodles, but we're going to do them from all over Southeast Asia. Well, I thought that was a really cool idea. This is August of 1993. And so walking out of there, the spark hit me, the epiphany hit me, which is people all over the world grew up eating pasta and noodles. And wouldn't it be great if you just put the best of those on one menu, made it fast, affordable, delicious, healthful, everything you want in dining on an everyday basis, just kind of everyday dining, not formal dining. So that's where the spark happened. And I began what is the basic brand vitality process, which is I had a vision, right? This vision kind of came to me. But this is true in anything I do, or presumably anything you do. You go through this process. You have a vision, you put a plan together, you execute against your plan, and you assess how you did. And then you recraft your vision and you keep going, So when you're thinking about a brand, you're thinking about Pepsi, where I was the brand manager in 1989 through 93. This is what we did. We did a lot of assessment, external assessment. What are consumers thinking about Pepsi right now? How do they feel about the brand compared to the alternatives? And then we clarify our strategy, which is the vision, and we put a plan together. We developed the advertising campaign, sales program, all that sort of thing. Okay, so that little circle, that little brand vitality cycle, you'll see in the next couple of frames in this upper left-hand corner. So the vision part of Noodles & Company, why was this a distinct idea? Well, it's because we're pioneering some new territory here. When I laid this out, I said, how do people eat today? Well, they care about how fast it is and how slow it is, and they care about the quality. I thought those were the two most important. I didn't think it was price, because I think time is the new currency. That's what I'm thinking when I'm starting the business. So I started mapping out restaurants, Morton's, all the fine dining restaurants they better be high quality, right? Because if they're over here and they're fine dining, they're real slow, right? And they're trying to be fine dining, but their food quality is low, they're dead, right? They're out of here. Why would you go there? So I started mapping them out, and they kind of formed this this value threshold. And so McDonald's maybe is way up in that upper left-hand corner as an example. Fairly homogenized food, but it's really quick. You can count on it always being fast. But nobody had really gone into this category in the upper right, high-quality, quick food. Why wouldn't people go into that category? Because it's hard to do. That's why.